Hello, Utah. Welcome to the Spring 2023 Be Ready Utah webinar, Shake, Rattle, and Sandbag. The whole point of that is we're going to be talking about earthquake preparedness, we're going to be talking about floods, and we're going to be talking about how Be Ready Utah can help you and your family prepare for an emergency. Does that imply that we're going to have more of these webinars in the future? Well, we really hope so. If we get a lot of people on tonight, we have some great participation from you, asking questions in the chat comments below. Yeah, we really would like to do a lot more of these in the future. So I guess it's up to you, and if we do well as well. Why do we need to worry about preparing for emergencies? One thing you need to think about preparing for emergencies, if something happens, I mean, we've already seen flooding going on right now. If something happens, it's really up to you to make sure that you and your family are safe and ready for whatever could be happening. FEMA's not going to be able to rush in and save the day. Even the state of Utah, we don't have the resources to come in and do everything that needs to happen to help people to be safe. We need to take it upon ourselves as citizens, as residents, as Utahns, to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves and our families. You want to think about why is that? Because there's about one emergency responder to every 1,000 residents in Utah on average. So what does that mean? That means that for every fireman, rescue, EMT, law enforcement, all the way to animal control, there's only one of those for every 1,000 people. There's not enough of them to go around. Again, we have to take care of ourselves. And that's the whole point of Be Ready Utah, is to help you to be able to empower yourself, be self-reliant, to take care of yourself and your family. Now, polls have shown that about 10% of the population is what they would even consider themselves as prepared for an emergency. Now, I'd imagine that you that are showing up here tonight, thank you very much for being here. You're probably part of that 10%. You're interested in being more prepared. You're interested in what more can I do to help my family to be safe. We need you to take the information that you learned tonight and the things that you do and share them with your other family members, share them with your friends, share them with your neighbors and your coworkers, so that we can get that 10% up a little bit higher. Because again, we're going to be on our own when things really get bad. So one thing that I want to say before we get started with our presentation, we invite you down at the bottom of your screen during the presentations to open up the little thing that says chat. Click on that, should open a little window, and you can type in your questions during the presentations that we have. And then we'll have about 5 minutes after each presentation to answer as many of those as we can. We can't guarantee that we'll be able to answer all of them, but we'll answer as many as we can. Now, with that being said, I'm going to introduce to you now the Be Ready Utah team. So Be Ready Utah, if you guys could turn your cameras on. Okay. Well, we'll just introduce ourselves real quick. I'm Brian Stinson, sometimes known as Be Ready Brian. I do the social media for Be Ready Utah, and I've had about 20 years experience in teaching emergency preparedness. Jeff, you want to tell us real quick about yourself?
Yeah, I am the Be Ready Schools coordinator. We're trying to get schools to be more ready and be more prepared to keep our children safe. And I'm also the interim state community emergency response team coordinator.
Marilyn, tell us a little about yourself. You're on mute. You're muted. You got to unmute. Marilyn.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Hi, everybody. Yes, I've been with the division for 29 years, and I travel all over the state of Utah and present emergency preparedness for any disaster. And so I love my job with Be Ready Utah. Thank you.
James.
Yeah, my name is James Ray. I'm over our Be Ready business side of things, where we're trying to get private sector, all of the businesses, any workplace-based setting to become more resilient. And this includes building business continuity plans. This includes building emergency response plans and getting your workforce prepared. So also I help administer our Be Ready Utah website. So thank you, and hope you enjoy tonight.
All right, thank you. So that's our Be Ready team. Our manager, she's not available tonight, but her name is Anna Boynton, and she became the manager of Be Ready Utah about a year ago. She has 21 years with the Department of Public Safety and 10 with the Division of Emergency Management. She's really looking forward to the future and in helping Utahns to be more prepared for emergencies. But again, unfortunately, she's not able to be with us tonight. Now, that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first presentation we've got is going to be about 20 minutes. We're going to share with you the things that Be Ready Utah can do to help you and your family to be more prepared for emergencies. Some of our resources and the things that we can share with you. All right, so Be Ready Utah, this is how we can help you help your community.
April 6th, 15 years ago, Be Ready Utah was founded, and it was your idea. So can you tell us a little bit about where did you get that idea?
Well, I can remember it well. It was when I was lieutenant governor. My friend, the lieutenant governor of Louisiana, Mitch Landrieu, invited us, other lieutenant governors, and there's about 2 or 3 of us that went, to come and take a look at the devastation that occurred after Hurricane Katrina and Rita in New Orleans. People maybe remember that. It was very devastating. Over 2,000 homes, destroyed or damaged. And of course, New Orleans is below sea level. And so they got these dikes, and they were pierced and filled up like a bathtub.
Yes, I think it was the largest disaster in the United States up to that point.
I think so. It may be pretty close to the largest even today. It's massive. And we went there, and he took us up in a Black Hawk helicopter. We flew around. We saw the devastation. And then I had a chance to talk to Mitch and say, what happened? What didn't happen? And the bottom line was people were not ready. They were not prepared. And the government wasn't prepared. They were hoping the federal government was going to come and give them relief. And of course, that did not happen very well. And so I came back, and out of that experience said, we need to make sure that we are prepared for whatever. Earthquake, fire, flood, economic downturn. People have asked me about the Be Ready Utah. Be ready for what? Well, fill in the blank. There's probably a lot of options that can fit in there. And so we developed in the Be Ready Utah program out of that event that happened in New Orleans, prompting us to become prepared and Be Ready Utah.
So that's how we began. Then Lieutenant Governor Herbert, he saw what was happening in Louisiana, people leaving their homes without so much as a bottle of water, and says, we can't do that here in Utah. We have to be more prepared. So Be Ready Utah, like he said, was created in 2006, and the whole purpose, our mandate, is to help you to know what you can do to be more prepared for emergencies. We can't do it for you, but we can give you resources that can empower you to be able to do it. And how do we do that? Let's talk about who Be Ready Utah is. We are part of the Department of Public Safety. The Utah Division of Emergency Management is a division within the Department of Public Safety. And then Be Ready Utah is the outreach arm of the Utah Division of Emergency Management. So we teach people, again, how to prepare for emergencies. This is our team. You've met us. There's Jeff, that's over Be Ready Schools. Marilyn, that's our earthquake lady. She's had many years experience in teaching people how to prepare for earthquakes and other things. Anna, our section manager. James over Be Ready Business. And me, I kind of focus on family and individual preparedness. All right, so here is the BeReady.Utah.gov. I'll say it in my announcer voice because it sounds really cool. BeReady.Utah.gov. That's our website. So always remember that. It's really easy to find, but we have so very much information that you can find here. This is just our homepage. Our homepage, this information is always changing depending on events that are going on. You can see information about the webinar. You can see information about the shakeout. John Crofts will talk more about that. We've got flooding going on. We've got information about how you can prepare. And each month we have a new topic of the month, and you can get direct information on that. Marilyn, do you want to come on and tell us about how to request Be Ready Utah?
Yes. If you're interested in having a Be Ready Utah speaker come to your event to talk about anything about preparedness, then you can go on the website and go to the event request, and there's a form, and Brian just pulled it up, and so you would fill this form out, put your name, your email address, and you can scroll down and then just fill it out. It's simple, easy, just to get all your information. And then at the bottom, you would submit it. And then this form goes to our spreadsheet, and one of us will receive this request of yours, and we will be giving you a call. And that's how simple it is to request for a speaker at Be Ready Utah. And there's no charge, no fee. We are free. Preparedness is free.
Thanks, Marilyn. I want to point out here that you can specifically request Marilyn. She has great posters and boards that she can come out and bring. We present for businesses, for community groups, community events. We present to church groups. So yeah, if you want us to come out, we'd love to do that. Okay, so back to our main screen. Be Ready Utah is divided into 4 areas. We've got family preparedness, business preparedness, school preparedness, and how you can help in your community to prepare as well. We'll go into a little bit more detail with these in a bit. Another resource I'd like you to see is the Be Ready Utah Library. This is where you get all the great brochures that Be Ready Utah is known for. We've got a whole bunch of them, and we're adding more all the time. Some of our most popular ones are like the, where is it? Disaster Supply Kit. That's a really popular one. Water storage and treatment, but you can click on that. Easy things to download and share with your family, your friends, your neighbors. We're working on, we have our 5 most popular ones we've translated into Spanish. We're working on getting more of those. And then some of our videos and links to YouTube, and some of our PowerPoint presentations that you can use if you're going to create a presentation for your own group. And then things about Be Ready Utah in the news. Okay, so, and then also go back to the main homepage again, scroll down to 12 areas of preparedness. This is something that's unique to Be Ready Utah. A lot of other state and community preparedness websites don't have this kind of detailed information. If you click on that, it breaks it down into 12 areas. You can click on each one, and it sends you to information about how to prepare shelter, clothing, and fire, and why you need to do that, with videos on that, brochure downloads, and links to other websites as well. So lots of great information about the 12 areas of emergency preparedness. We also have information about the hazards that are in Utah and specific protective actions that you need to do to prepare for those ones. And then again, you can have request a presentation or a booth there as well. And at the very bottom, there's links to our social media sites. So Be Ready Utah, we also break it down into making a plan, getting a kit, being informed, and getting involved. Making a plan, the whole idea of that is it's teaching you how to plan what to do for safety, communication, reunification, sheltering, and evacuation, depending on the emergency scenario. So some of it's how to apply those 12 areas. Some of it's things that you can do for your business, your school, or your community in planning for emergency preparedness. Making a plan, getting a kit. This is kind of my favorite part. It's all the stuff. Supplies are necessary. We can teach you how what you need, how much you need, how to use it, and how to store it. Being informed, you need to know what kind of hazards are specific to your community. If you remember over on the website, we had information on hazards. So you need to know hazards and what you can do specifically for those hazards. And then getting involved, what you can do, getting involved in your community, whether that's the Community Emergency Response Team known as CERT, but what you can do to help your neighborhood prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. Again, we talked about social media. If you want to go to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, those are our main social media platforms that we have. Look up #prepare. Most of our social media posts are prefaced with #prepare. And this is a great thing that you can share with your family and with your friends. You can also find other things under #BeReadyBusiness, #BeReadySchools. We have a new thing of videos that we just produced in the last year called the Be Ready Buzz. You can find those as well. We're also on YouTube and Pinterest. We've got a lot of videos and a lot of information in both of those places. James, it's all you now.
All right. So with Be Ready Business, we've got quite a few resources to help businesses get prepared. So one thing that we invite everybody to do, if you work for a business or if you are one of the ones making decisions in the business, no matter what position you're in, we have an email subscription where we're pumping out lots of great information that help enable you to make a resilient workforce and a resilient workplace. So subscribe to that email. That's on the Be Ready Business page. As well, on the business page, you can find a calendar that is all Be Ready Business related. All of the events, we've got webinars, conferences, events of different types where that all relate to the private sector for resilience, business continuity, and emergency planning. Additionally, to help you out, on the website, on the Be Ready Business page, you'll find a business continuity toolkit or our Be Ready Business toolkit. That is packed full of resources of templates and tools to enable you to build plans and to put those plans into action. We've also got tons of training materials, all available in slides for self-paced training and learning, as well as all of the various talking points you can use to be able to work with your own workforce. One thing to note as well is that we are working with the University of Utah to provide a free, self-paced online learning environment with all of the learning points for all of the business continuity principles and emergency response principles that you can learn to enable you to act in that way. So go ahead and go to the next slide. We have what's called 15 points of business continuity planning. On the website, you can look at those, go to the Be Ready Business page under Make a Plan, and you'll see a slew of those 15 points, and you can click on each of those and see the training that pertains to it, access the toolkit that pertains to it. We also can provide consultation and support towards, if you have questions, you're like, hey, I don't even know where to start. Feel free to contact us and we can work with you and help point you in the right direction so that you can start making a difference for business resilience. Again, our private sector is our economic engine for our communities. And we work so hard to bring businesses into our communities. When disaster strikes, we want to keep them. We want you to keep your paychecks, and we want to keep our business doors open. So one additional thing, go ahead to the next slide, Brian, is a resource for businesses where the local jurisdiction sets up a private sector preparedness council. This is locally run by the local emergency manager. Oftentimes the local chamber of commerce can be involved and your local economic development office. And this becomes a support network, local support network where you're building relationships with these folks. And you can receive additional support for building business continuity and business resilience for your community, and then coordinate your business's plans with your local municipality plans as well. So with that, Brian, I think we'll go to the next slide, turn it over to the next person.
Okay, Jeff, it's all you.
So Be Ready Schools is basically all about making our schools safer for our children and safer for the staffs that work there. I want to pose a question, and I'd like you to think about it. Is there anything more important in life than keeping our children safe? I would pose there's not. And we need to realize that our children attend schools 180 days each year per Utah state law. And ever since Jefferson founded public education for the citizens of the United States a long time ago, schools have been charged with the safety of children in their care. There has been an inherent duty to protect those children. Teachers, and primarily administrators, have a responsibility to anticipate those potential dangers and to take precautions to protect their students from those dangers. This is the mission of Be Ready Schools. We are working in conjunction with the Utah State Board of Education, the Department of Public Safety, public school districts, public, charter, private, and parochial schools to keep students and their staff safe while at school. And we're working to prepare schools for all types of disasters, natural disasters, all sorts of those. There's a list of 24 that could potentially strike here in Utah, and along with man-made and technological incidents such as hazmat spills and bomb threats and things along those lines that affect schools. The idea is to prepare schools so that at the end of every day, everyone goes home, no matter what happens. We want schools to be ready. We want them to be prepared. We have a training program entitled the 12 Points of School Readiness, which covers the 12 areas schools need to be ready for. And this is a training for administrators and the staff of district, public, charter, and private schools. And we will go out in parochial schools, and we'll go out anywhere and provide that training, an on-site training. We also provide that training through meetings and conferences and other meetings that we have, such as the School Readiness Coordinating Council, which is primarily for school administrators to come in and receive training on school safety, school readiness, and school preparedness. Be Ready Schools can also assist with consultations and guidance and site assessments. Please realize there's great efforts underway in the state of Utah and through Be Ready Schools and other entities to make schools safer, more prepared, and a more ready environment for the children and school staffs. If you have interest in furthering this, please contact Be Ready Schools via the BeReady.Utah webpage if you want more information or would like our assistance in helping with school preparedness and readiness. And Brian, you can jump to the next slide. I didn't tell you that, but it just talks about the School Readiness Coordinating Council that is training on trending topics. If you want to, you can jump to the next slide, please. We also have, as part of our Be Ready community, the community emergency response teams. These teams provide an untold and innumerable service and support to their communities. It is a vetted, trained cadre of citizens, a core of citizens that assist their communities where they live. These CERT-trained citizens can provide medical assistance after disasters, sandbagging during flooding, which is a real pertinent topic today. We're going to hear from Tracy on that. Light traffic and crowd control, firefighter rehabilitation during extended incidents, emergency communication support, and many more things for their city. They are an invaluable force multiplier for the cities. Be Ready Utah provides guidance and support to local CERT programs. We provide CERT instructor training so that instructors can be trained to teach the basic CERT training courses in their cities. We provide program manager training for local CERT managers to help them understand what they need to do and how they need to do it to keep their CERT team as a viable source for community support. There's a CERT toolkit on our Be Ready Utah website if you'd like to go take a look at that. And if assisting your community in a time of crisis or disaster or another need in your city If that interests you, please contact your city or county emergency manager and inquire about how to become trained and involved with your local CERT team. I always say there's going to be more people saved in this state by people wearing green CERT vests and green helmets than there will be by first responders. That's not because our first responders won't do a fantastic job and actually work themselves to death trying to help us and save us, but by sheer numbers, and we have about 100,000 plus trained CERT members in the state, by sheer numbers, they're more likely to show up at a problem first and intervene with life-saving help and with community assistance where it's needed. So please, if this interests you, please get involved. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, James.
All right. One of our Be Ready community programs is what's called Whole Community Preparedness Coalitions. Well, not everybody will be involved with this, but there are lots of ways that local communities become a solution to their community's needs. And so if your community does not have a whole community preparedness coalition, try contacting your local emergency manager and seeing how you can help with establishing one. We've got a website that is our BeReady.Utah website has a page that is all about this. That provides guidance and support, has a toolkit. As well, we have some activities that local jurisdictions can ask us to come and host, or those local jurisdictions can even borrow. We've got an activity called Disasterville, which is kind of a tabletop game with kind of a community setting. We've got another activity called the Extreme Event Game that we can host, as well as a whole community disaster simulation activity that local jurisdictions can request us to come and provide. And as well as a tabletop activity called the Whole Community Tabletop. And we have a tool called the Neighborhood Rapid Disaster Assessment Toolkit. Now, all of these tools are here for whole community preparedness coalitions, as well as emergency preparedness people to kind of help get the idea of why whole community preparedness is so important. So feel free to ask us about those, visit our website to learn more about those, and feel free to contact Be Ready Utah if you'd like us to come and provide some of those for your community. Back to Brian.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. That was the end of our first part of this. Some other questions I'm seeing, other languages on the website. Right now, it's mostly English based, and we have a few things that we're working really hard on getting Spanish speaking as well. We don't have resources at the moment to go beyond English and Spanish, but we're working on it. So again, we ask you to be patient. There's only 5 of us, and we're only English speakers. So we're having to reach out beyond us and get some help for other languages. James, was there any other questions that you saw for us?
Yeah, there was one question from Barbara. She said, how is whole community preparedness different from the CERT program? And the CERT program is one aspect of community preparedness. And the CERT program teaches you basic disaster response skills, but there are a lot more organizations within the community that are involved with your community's response and recovery efforts. So again, I invite you, go to the Be Ready community page on our BeReady.Utah.gov website, and you can learn more about whole community preparedness and who that all involves and what that may entail. So feel free to look at that.
Right.
Also, just one question, will you be providing training tonight on sandbagging for our home? Yes, Tracy is going to be addressing us after we hear from John on earthquakes. And then one more question, how would we know how to contact our local floodplain manager? And I think Tracy will answer that as well.
Okay, thank you. That being said, Marilyn, yes.
Yes, there was a question asking how many languages are with the Be Ready Utah brochure. And to my knowledge, we have the Spanish our brochures are in Spanish, but the American Red Cross, they have brochures with all types of languages, Chinese, Japanese, Germany. So check with your local American Red Cross, and they're free. The brochures are free for you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. That being said, we're running a little bit over time. So now we're going to bring up John Crofts. He's our earthquake preparedness guy here at the Division of Emergency Management. John, if you want to bring up your camera. Okay, John has worked for the Utah Division of Emergency Management for nearly 20 years. He's worked in the private sector, local government, and the state. He served in a variety of emergency management assistant compacts and helped in disasters in Utah and various other states. John's been a program manager for several FEMA and state programs and has been the earthquake program manager for nearly 3 years. He has a passion for saving life, property, environment, and commerce. He's approachable and welcomes and mentors others when mitigating earthquake risk. All right, John, he is our earthquake guru. We turn the time to you, John. You can share the screen.
Great. Thank you for that kind introduction. And I just wanted to compliment everybody with the Be Ready section. I really appreciated your presentations, and I thought they were great. I also would like to endorse, everybody, at DEM. I've worked with these people. They're my friends. They've been able to help me on so many things throughout the years. So I think we're really fortunate tonight to hear from these presenters, and thank you, Brian and Jeff and James and Merrill and Hoff. I really appreciate all your efforts. So anyway, I assume everybody can see my screen. I'm just going to go through. I don't have too much time to speak tonight, so I might be going through some of this a little bit quickly. And you're welcome to take my email and email me, and I'd be glad to respond to questions after the presentation, or just please feel free to email me anytime. It's just jcrofts@Utah.gov. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about you. I mean, the people here tonight, you represent a different segment of the population. You are sacrificing your evening to learn about emergency management and preparedness and earthquakes and flooding. And, I would propose that you're an important group of people that are going to play a very big role when we have disasters in Utah. I wanted to point out this picture. This is a polite group of people raising their hands and, working to affect change. And this is also another group of people working to affect change. They're a little bit louder. So I think that all of us fit somewhere within that spectrum of being polite, raising our hands, and maybe yelling in the town square from time to time. So I think it's appropriate to ask ourselves, which way is the best way for us to affect change and make a safer, better life for everybody. I wanted to talk a little bit about making a better life for everybody. Can everybody see this? This represents something personal for me. This is at Temple Square. Temple Square right now is going through some major seismic improvements. They are putting in the most modern, best base isolation system for the Salt Lake City Temple. But this represents one monument on Temple Square. And this is the seagulls. This represents the seagulls when they ate the crickets and saved the crops when the pioneers arrived in the Salt Lake Valley. And my father was a gold leaf artist his entire life. And so my father, he was 87 years old and he was suffering bone cancer. And 3 months before he died, he got a boom truck and went up and re-gold plated those seagulls. And he asked me if I would share that with the people that are most important to me in my life, my children, and tell them that he left something for them to look at. So that was just 3 months before his death. And I think he was 87 years old, just about 88 years old when he was doing that. And I think that it was a lesson to me, like, let's try to leave the world a better place than when we came. And I hope that this presentation will maybe inspire some of us, and maybe all of us, to leave this world in a much better place. And I want to talk a little bit about that with earthquakes and what we can do. So these are my 3 children. They matter quite a bit to me, and that's my dog. And so, my dad challenged me when I died to make sure that the world is a much better place, than it was when I started. And I think my dad, he did his thing. And I think that all of us have an important role to play in life and making the world better for everyone. This here is this website. It's earthquakes.Utah.gov. And we have a link in there to the Be Ready site as well, and to DEM. But this earthquakes.Utah.gov is a very great website. It has some great documents. This is our Putting Down Roots document that Be Ready was instrumental in and improving. And this is a new edition that we have out. And so I have some other publications in here too. So if you have one takeaway, please take away the earthquakes.Utah.gov. There's some great publications. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Also coming up, we're in April. So April 20th, we are going to be doing the Great Utah Shakeout. And please visit this website and sign up for it. You can even sign up for tips and info. Just text earthquakes to 43362. And if you and your organization have not signed up for that yet, please do. And so I wanted to give a big shout out to Be Ready. They have helped this exercise, throughout the state for a long, long time. And I'm a strong proponent of it. And I think that, by participating in this great shakeout, it will help save life. And I'm really excited for this year's as well. So I'm giving that a shout out, and wanted to thank Be Ready for really pushing this forward as well. I just wanted to talk a little bit about a discussion of disasters and why they matter. And I talked about a little bit, I referenced you people that are here tonight. You're sacrificing your evening to learn about disasters. And I just wanted to say kudos to you. And disasters matter because what we do before, during, and after affects life, affects property, environment, and commerce. And it's extremely important to not neglect disasters, because, when disasters go poorly and we don't mitigate them before, our losses are always much greater. I wanted to just mention, some things, there's some things in life that change us forever. I was in Mississippi during Hurricane Katrina, and I was there soon after the disaster. And the eye of the hurricane went right through Mississippi, and I served there for quite some time. It was a very difficult situation. It was very, very emotional. I stayed in a Motel 6 hotel that had been damaged from the hurricane, and people were just in desperate circumstances. My hotel room was right next to a family that had 6 small children, and they were barbecuing 3 hot dogs on the grill when I came home from my long day of work, my 15-hour day. And the mom would cut the hot dogs in half, and each person in the family, had half a hot dog. And, there were much worse things than that I saw. There were horrific things that went on. And it changed me for the rest of my career. And so every time I think about disaster management and mitigating disasters, I think of Hurricane Katrina and the lessons that I learned there. And so it changed me. And I think a lot of us have experiences like that change us for the better. And, back to you. I can make some assumptions about the people that are on this meeting tonight. You're people that fix things. And sometimes you're underappreciated in life. And when things go wrong, I think that this group is the group of people that fix things. And as people, you're protectors, guardians, and people that care. I can emergency management. There's all these different things that rotate around emergency management. Public works, that's kind of the area that, a lot of people sometimes neglect. Public works right now, they're not appreciated as much as they should be, but there's a lot of different things in here. Earthquake's one of them. I just wanted to go really quickly. This is just a diagram of the Earth's crust, and if I can just make a really a very superficial comparison. The Earth's crust is like a balloon. So most of the Earth is just molten in the middle, and the Earth's crust is maybe the little thin layer of the balloon on the outside. And that's called plate tectonics. And these are all the plates throughout the world. We live on the North American plate. And anyway, this is a picture of the Earth's crust. Plate tectonics is normal. The heavier part of the plate goes underneath, and the lighter part stays on top. And this happens around those plate boundaries that you saw in red on the previous slide. So anyway, it came up in the earthquake when we had a magna. Somebody said that we were going to have a magnitude 9 earthquake. It's impossible for Utah to have magnitude 9 earthquake. We don't have subduction zones like this in Utah, but we do have the Wasatch Fault. And these are 3 general types of fault. The normal fault is the one that the Wasatch Fault has, where it slopes downwards. So the mountains are towards the east and the valley floor is to the west. That's a normal fault. That's what we have. This is a diagram of the fault, the Wasatch Fault. And you can see right along the mountains that there's, several large breaks in the soil. And that's the Wasatch Fault that's been moving for centuries. So, and we're about due for a large earthquake right now. A lot of people thought that the 5.7 magnitude earthquake was released sufficient stress. It did not. We still have enough stress along the Wasatch Fault to have a major earthquake. This is a trench study that we have. This is just talking about earthquakes and the waves. I wanted to talk right now. We're looking at doing the state legislature funded an earthquake early warning system feasibility study for the state. So right now we're working on exploring the options of having an early warning system like California and Oregon and Washington have. So that would give you valuable seconds, for earthquake. That would give a lot of different people critical time to prepare for an earthquake. And, you see the P waves, those are the ones that come first. Those are the compression waves, followed by the S waves that are more damaging. As you can see, the P wave is just the compression, and that goes, and that's quick. And then the S wave, that's the one that has the velocity and the amplitude. And so that can cause more damage. Just back onto the Wasatch Front and our probabilities that we have. So it's basically a coin's toss that will have a 6.75 or up to a 7.6 earthquake in the state of Utah in the next 50 years, and a 57% chance that we'll have a probability of a magnitude 6 earthquake. So, and this probability was done a few years ago, so we could probably even increase this a little bit. And the point of the matter is right now we need to prepare for an earthquake now. There's some pretty big damages that we're expecting. I'm going to go through that quickly. $80+ billion of economic losses, over 2,000 anticipated fatalities. A lot of people believe it's more, up to a 3,000 plus. So let's just compare a couple of things. So, along the Wasatch Front, our population here is 1/7 of the area of the Los Angeles area. However, if we had an earthquake of similar magnitude, versus the Los Angeles area, we'd have 10 times the number of serious injuries and deaths. And the reason for that is the unreinforced masonry buildings. Those are, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But back in 2019, we started a cooperative effort with a lot of participants to decide what we could do to mitigate earthquake risk in the state of Utah. And this can be found on earthquakes.Utah.gov. It's called the Wasatch Front Unreinforced Masonry Risk Reduction Strategy. It's 115 pages of gold nuggets. This strategy will save life. And we had the designer earthquake that some people refer to the Magna earthquake as, because we didn't have one death, and we were very fortunate for that. The pandemic was going on at the time, and most students were not in school, and a lot of people were working from home, so we were very fortunate to have not had any loss of life. I'm going to go on, and when I talked about the unreinforced masonry buildings, those are just basically brick buildings with no steel reinforcement. And they also offer the highest risk during an earthquake. And they can even have life-threatening damage at low levels of shaking. Back to our strategy, they came out with there's 5 overarching goals. And the first one was to establish a URM risk reduction program. Second one that we're really working on right now is to protect schools, mitigate critical government facilities and tighten existing building code loopholes at the state level, and empower local communities to enforce and retrofit existing programs. So this picture here that I took, this was from the earthquake that we heard so much about in Turkey and Syria. And just a little bit more about these URMs. They often collapse outwards, and the bricks and falling debris can be fatal. It endangers pedestrians, and it basically makes a private risk public risk. Here's a couple of pictures of some of the rescuers that were working to save people's lives after that earthquake. This building failed, and here's a larger picture of it. And people ask, is the earthquake in Turkey similar to the earthquake in Utah? The earthquakes in Turkey are a little bit different. They had a magnitude 7.8 earthquake, and then it was followed up with a 7.5, but they had 2 major faults that were going through Turkey. And so Utah would have one large earthquake, but that would relieve the stress. So we probably wouldn't have 2, and we wouldn't have 2 consecutive large earthquakes like they had there. But we can still learn a lot of lessons from Turkey. Again, here's some more rescuers. And I wanted to point out, the importance of these, mitigating these URMs. So again, here's the earthquakes.Utah.gov that I spoke about. In that website, we have some really valuable publications, and I'll let you look at some of those. We also have the Utah Seismic Safety Commission's recommendations to the legislature. The legislature actually has provided funding towards earthquake mitigation with schools, and they also provided funding for an early earthquake warning system. But I wanted to concentrate on the Utah kindergarten through 12th public schools reinforced masonry inventory. And this inventory basically went through and it looked at all the schools. And 12% of our Utah public schools spend some or all of their time in a URM building. So that represents about 72,000 students. And it had 19 school campuses. That was later reduced to 118 now. But it's over $2 billion of improvements. Now, it looks like that's pretty bad, but if you go back 60 years, the structural engineers, they agree that 95% of Utah's school buildings were unreinforced masonry buildings. So we've made a lot of progress in the state, but we still have 12%. We also found out that, there were 14 additional campuses that were likely under reinforced, and we also had 14 campuses that we don't know on, and 130 school campuses that are likely under reinforced. And anyway, we have a long way to go. Just a little bit of background: Long Beach, California, 1933. Helena, Montana, 1935. In California, they knew that the URM risk, back in the 30s, and that's a school that was damaged. And so California prohibited the construction of URMs much earlier than the state of Utah did. The state of Utah adopted building codes, and those buildings basically stopped construction in 1976. So when I talked about our strategy, goal 2, protect the schools, we've set aggressive dates. This is some damage to one of our schools in Salt Lake County that has been damaged, and it's been rebuilt actually. But if you can imagine, there could have been a bunch of kids there had we not had a pandemic, and that could have been disastrous. So I'm coming up on my time. I want to make sure I don't go over. 20 of Utah's 29 counties have these URMs, and we have a lot of work to do. Some of the things that this did not include, this study didn't include private schools, it didn't include seminary buildings, it didn't include charter schools as well. That when the scope of this work began, it didn't include those. I'm going to skip by that. This is a map. You can see the map on the right. That's dots with all the URM schools. You can see that everywhere in Utah has a URM school. You can actually pull this report up right from earthquakes.Utah.gov, and it gives addresses and lists of schools. Interesting to note, my 3 children attended school in unreinforced masonry buildings. So I think it's something that we can all work towards. And, you know, when we talk about leaving the world in a better place than we are, hopefully by the time, you know, many of us go on, hopefully our URM schools are eliminated and, or retrofitted, and, you know, our children have safer schools to go to. But I did want to make sure that everybody had the opportunity to see that. I'm going to kind of go through here. We have the safety assessment program that I oversee. It's a statewide program that does building evaluations following an earthquake. We mark the buildings as unsafe. We red tag it, yellow tag, green tag it, and we also have a credential that we go through, so building evaluators can go through and identify those buildings. I think my time's coming up, so I'm just going to go through some of these pictures. This is during an earthquake. You know, we have, you know, soils turn into liquid. So this was a septic tank that actually rose to the surface during an earthquake. So I'm just going to go through really quick. That was a picture in Alaska when they had the large earthquake in the 60s in Alaska. This is South America. Earthquakes can cause land failure, landslides, other things. This was a rock fall. Anyway, this was New Zealand, some damage that took place. This was Wells, Nevada. The only building that wasn't, the only wall that wasn't damaged in that earthquake was the American flag wall. So I think that maybe that had something to do with it. If you don't want damage, paint a flag on the wall. Maybe it won't get damaged. That was a good takeaway. Anyway, I just wanted to go through. I'm going through that really quickly. I really appreciate your time. I hope that I've motivated some of you to look into earthquakes a little bit more and visit earthquakes.Utah.gov. Here's my contact information. And, you know, please, if any of you would like to, you're very welcome to email me or call me. And I'm excited about saving life, property, environment, and commerce, just as many of you are. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you, Brian.
John, we have a couple of questions real quick. One person asked, it's possible to have earthquakes in Park City. How does somebody know if you want to stop sharing your screen, how does somebody know if there is an earthquake possible where they live? How can they find out that information?
Well, if you go to, let's see, I've stopped sharing my screen, right? So
it's all good. You're good.
Yeah. So if you go to earthquakes.Utah.gov, we have a link on there to the geological survey, and they have a list of all the known maps in the state of Utah. And yes, you know, Summit County is susceptible to earthquakes. Yeah, it's on the Wasatch Back. The risk is a little bit lower than the Wasatch Front, but yes, most of the state does live in earthquake country. So basically most of, you know, all of the state is susceptible to some earthquake risk.
Okay.
Good question.
One other question, are cellular phone apps on earthquake notification good to have? Are they accurate?
Yes, we do have some cellular, and you know, you can go to earthquakes.Utah.gov and we reference some of those, and you can download those. The U.S. Geological Survey, the Utah Geological Survey, they have detailed analysis on their website that you can look at as well. They have apps for those. Typically, those earthquakes are delayed. So if you're on Shake Alert or something like that, you can find out about an earthquake, but they are delayed. The early earthquake warning systems that California, Oregon, and Washington are participating in right now, they get much sooner notifications. So the state of Utah, we don't have an early earthquake warning system, but yes, those apps are generally tied to the Geological Survey, and they are pretty accurate. And I don't believe, sometimes there's little mistakes or glitches, but more than not, they're very accurate. And so,
Right.
yeah, I would recommend them looking at those two. Thanks, Brian.
Well,
Brian,
thank you very much, John. Yeah, Jeff.
if I may, John, there's a question on here. What are we supposed to do about unreinforced masonry schools? And I know you can send them to a location.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. Great question. So if you go to that K through 12 report that I referenced, there's actually some excellent recommendations on what we can do on those schools. So I would recommend, I don't have time to get into too much detail with it, but I think the biggest thing that we did, the biggest hurdle that we had was to first get this inventory released so that people are aware of the earthquake risk with our schools. And there's many things that we can do. I will say it's really nice to have a governor that is so supportive of earthquake preparedness. Governor Cox came to an earthquake conference last year, and he actually provided the plenary speech at our earthquake conference and provided just a really strong support from government levels. We also had from the highest level in the state, from our governor's office, and we had Utah state legislators that showed up as well, and they have been putting millions of dollars towards improving schools, and you know, they've been very supportive. So I'm very optimistic about a lot of good things that are taking. But please read that K through 12 inventory report and look through those recommendations. There's a lot of good things that we can do, and schools matter because they're community gathering areas following a disaster. And if we do have a large earthquake, we don't want to have the community gathering center be an unreinforced masonry building that's damaged that we can't utilize. And so there's a lot of different uses for schools. They just don't educate our children, but they also serve as infrastructure for strong communities. So great question. Thanks for asking that. And please visit the report at earthquakes.Utah.gov.
Okay, thanks, John. And that was John Crofts, our Utah, the Division of Emergency Management Earthquake Program Manager. Tracy, if we'll take a quick 2-minute break before you come on. I'd just like to share something real quick with everyone. We want to remind you about the Great Utah Shakeout that's happening next Thursday at 10:15. You can get more information on that from our website, BeReady.Utah.gov. There's all sorts of resources there of how you can participate. Remember to drop cover and hold on. Okay, yep, we want you to remember to drop cover and hold on in the event of an earthquake. So know the drill. You need to drop to the ground, because otherwise the earthquake might throw you down there, and you're a lot less likely to get injured if you get down there yourself. The next thing you need to do is cover your head, which I know for most of us, that's our most important part of our bodies. I hope that's the same for everybody. So, but cover your head, and then you need to hold on to something, hold on to that cover, because you could be thrown out from underneath the table, or the table could be thrown away from you. Hold on to it so that you have that cover. Now, if you're not able to actually get underneath something, as much as you're able to, crawl over to an inner wall and again, cover your head until the shaking stops. Don't run outside. You need to stay inside until the shaking stops, then go outside. A lot of people are injured when they're trying to run outside during the earthquake. Okay, we are at 8 o'clock. Tracy, she is our Utah floodplain manager. And she's also part of the Utah Division of Emergency Management. She manages the State National Floodplain Insurance Program, providing technical assistance, training, and she assists communities in regulating their floodplains. She earned her Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Utah and has spent over 18 years in the insurance industry helping individuals manage risk. So Tracy, we've got all sorts of insanity going on right now. Fortunately, it's not as bad as Florida. I heard they had 30 inches of rain just I think a couple days ago, more than they've ever had. We haven't had that, but we do have a lot of flooding going on. So with that, I turn it over to you.
We do. And thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. I have been watching the chats that we've been talking about during this presentation. And so I might tweak my presentation a little bit so that we can get some things covered that you guys are asking for. So a couple of things and just how I'm going to go through this. I want to just talk about what we're seeing now. Okay, our conditions now, what kind of flooding is happening now. I just want to talk to you a little bit about what the National Flood Insurance Program is. You might have heard of this NFIP. I want to focus on how to know about your risks. So I'm going to go over some of the risk information about that, how to prepare for that risk. And last little bit, we're going to talk about flood insurance, and hopefully I can answer some questions if you have questions on flood insurance. So I just kind of wanted to give you a breakdown of what we're going to kind of try and cover. And again, I'll try and tweak it to what I've been seeing in your messages that you've been sending the questions and answers, which is great. Thanks for sending that information through. So things that I'm seeing right now. Okay, so this has been in the news about storm drains that were causing this flooding in Kaysville. I'm going to show you a couple of things that we're having isolated flooding. You'll see it in the news. It's not like this wide, massive flooding. It's really isolated flooding. And a lot of people are asking, how do I know that it's going to be flooding in my neighborhood or it's going to come down my street? And this is really tricky because things like debris that's being caught in a storm drain is going to reroute water where we wouldn't normally see it. So it's hard for us to predict whether a tree or branch or something's going to clog up a storm drain. It's going to jump over, some curbs and guttering, and it's going to come down and hit, 3 houses before it ends up going back into a channel. So it's very tricky to try and pinpoint exactly what that risk is going to be. I'm going to try and give you a couple of tools that maybe you can look at to kind of give you an idea of what that risk is. But this is something that just is happening around Utah right now. The other thing that we were seeing is this type of flooding. This one's the one that just happened in Hooper. This is going to be more the type of flooding that we might see when we're having our spring melt runoff, right? Our ground is going to be pretty saturated. It's already going to have water with it. When we have the snow that's going to come and melt, if we have rain on top of snow events, you might have heard that before, the water is not able to be absorbed into the ground. And so we get what we call this ponding. This is a good example of the ponding that you might see for flooding. And it might be some isolated areas, or it might be in a community that's just been overwhelmed with the storm drains, right? So if we've got a lot of water that's coming down with the storm drains, it could bubble up and back up in the storm drains. So just kind of some ideas of what we're looking in flooding. Now, with the Division of Emergency Management, we are hearing so much about what they are trying to do to regulate the water. This one right here is Gunlock Reservoir. So I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they started releasing water in Gunlock Reservoir so that they were allowing for more water to come in. And this is happening around the state. There's a lot of reservoirs that are being released. I was just on a call with East Canyon, the dam that's up there. They were talking about how much water can we release because we know we're going to have some more come down on the snow. So they are trying to release water ahead of what they're anticipating for more of the snow melt. This is the same thing with your Public Works Department. Not only were they doing all of your snow plows and removing all the snow, right, when we were having snow, but now we're flipping that over to, now we're trying to get the storm drains cleared out. And so there's been a lot of questions on what are we doing with these storm drains? If there's simple storm drains, you can clean out your gutter that's out in front of your house, keep that clean and debris free. Obviously, we don't want you to get in there and get into any chemicals or any really sharp debris. You can contact your Public Works Department. They might have lists that are already going. I know I live in a community of West Jordan, Utah. They have a GIS platform that's actually, you can go up online and you could take a look and they'll be actually showing where they might be doing some work. So it depends on the community and what the community resources are. Salt Lake County Flood Control District has a wonderful website that they put together that they actually are showing areas where they are going to be monitoring higher flows that they're anticipating. great story map. And if I get a chance, I'll put it in the questions and answers, or maybe we can supply that later if you're in Salt Lake County. I have not found one for Utah County yet. So I'm kind of looking for those resources to help. The question was, how are we going to know about what our risk is, right? So the National Flood Insurance Program, just to kind of give you an idea, that's a voluntary program. So each community that wants to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, they do that by adopting local floodplain management regulations and an ordinance. Kind of tells you how to build, and generally we would like to try and have you build above elevation, above a flood elevation. Best available data can give us, what the flood elevations are going to be. And then we also require you to have permits when you're going to be building. So that's one part of the National Flood Insurance Program. The other part of that is that they help us to develop what we call our floodplain or our floodplain insurance rate map. Those are FEMA generated maps that will give us statistical information about where we would find the higher risk in our flood plains and in our neighborhoods. I'm going to show you what that looks like so you have an idea. And then the second part of the NFIP is that they provide flood insurance, that's federally backed flood insurance that you can purchase through sometimes your own insurance carrier, or you can go to floodsmart.gov and you can actually find an insurance provider and you can get a flood insurance quote. If your community doesn't participate in the NFIP, that doesn't mean you can't get flood insurance. You could purchase that through the private industry side of it. So there's always that availability. So basically it's that three-prong approach that we want to know what our risk is through our mapping, mitigate that risk, and then insuring that risk. So let me show you a little bit about where we're looking right now in weather snowpack, okay? So this is from USDA. This is our National Weather Service graph. I threw this in here today because this graph right here, if you can see it, this is what's showing up as our peak. So this was the highest that we have been. I believe this was in 2011. We did have quite a bit of flooding events, again, isolated flooding events. But you can see this black line here. This is what our snow accumulation is. You can get this information yourself by going onto the website for snow accumulations in Utah, and we can put that link in for you. And this can also give you water stats for specific river basins. Like if you're on the Bear River, it'll give you specific water stats for that. So you can get some more information. This is about kind of knowing what your risk is. The National Flood Insurance Program, these are the FEMA risk maps. This is what I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about, okay? So where we say where it rains, it can flood, all right? So everybody has a chance for flooding. It's just some people might have higher risk for flooding than what others do. Those people with higher risk might be along a water channel, right? So they've got a stream running through their backyard. They might be at a higher risk than somebody that is uphill, maybe 3 houses over, right? So what we're trying to do with FEMA is that we are mapping what we can take a look at with historical information and with modeling what we could take a look at predicted areas of what we might consider a higher risk than in other areas. The limitations for this is that they do not take into consideration future conditions. So a map is only as good as when it's made that time frame. And so some of the maps in our community were made maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They're not taking into consideration a condition that's happening right now. So we're going to have to use a little bit of a common sense kind of looking at this and go, if I'm at a higher risk currently, and I know that the snowpack is even higher than it normally would be, then chances are I'm at a little bit higher risk than, let's say, last year. So I want to just kind of show you what this is. So the National Flood Insurance Program, you can go to a website. It's M as in Mary, S as in Sam, C as in Charlie, .fema.gov. You can pull that up, you can put in your address there, and it's going to give you a map similar to what I'm showing right here in most areas. The area in blue that you can see right here is what we call that 1%. That's a 1% annual chance that a flood would happen without having our snowpack conditions that we have now. This is just historical information. The lines that are on these cross hatchings right here, this is called a floodway. So areas, of course, where there's a stream or a river, houses that are along there are going to have more of a risk. The ones that are in this kind of orangey kind of color, these are lower risks for having a flood event. This is a 0.2% average in an annual given year. And if this map was a little bit larger, you'd actually see where there's no color on it. So that's going to be somebody that is in a very low risk for having flooding. Again, if we're looking at what our conditions are right now, and we're seeing some of that, we'll know that our flooding risk is probably a little bit higher. Maybe it's not on this map again, but we're going to look at it going future conditions currently is probably making my my home or my area a little bit more susceptible for flood. The other thing, again, is what I'm saying is we don't know if something's going to back up in a flood in a channel, in a culvert, that's going to push water into a neighborhood or in homes. So again, anywhere that it rains, it can flood, but again, in some of these areas, you might have a little bit more of a risk than on other areas, okay? So this is kind of the knowing your risk side of it. We've tried to provide some information with BeReady Utah. If you go to BeReady.Utah.gov, they do have an area there that you can click for flooding. Has a lot of information about flooding, how to find out about flooding. It'll have where you can find these maps. It'll have information about what to do to prepare for flooding before, during, and after flooding. It'll have some Sandbag information. I hope that's on there. So we're trying to put as much information that is at your fingertips that can assist you with this. Another really good resource that you can utilize is going to be your local emergency manager or your county emergency manager. They're going to have a lot of information about where to get sandbags, how to fill the sandbags, how to place sandbags. That's where the emergency managers are tying into what we're doing when we're talking about the risk and getting that information out to you. Other things that I have on here, like I mentioned, there's the USDA data product for the basin. So this is going to tell you in which basin, how much water is accumulating and what the snowpack is on there. So a couple of information on where you can go for websites on that. Some things that we wanted to talk about to prepare before some flooding. We've had some isolated flooding. So some things that you can do right now is we talk about maintaining water drainage, right? Trying to clean, and I know it sounds simple, but cleaning and maintaining your gutters and downspouts, right? So we can get it away from the home. Some of those gutter downspouts, they're really, really short, right? You could probably buy an extension so you could pull it further away from the house so it's not around the foundation of the home. That might be something that's really great. We talked about the storm drains. If you have areas that you've seen with the storm drains being clogged, contacting your public works department. When you're diverting water away from your home, be really considerate of the neighbors next to you. It would be better for you to divert it down into your storm drain area or your curb and gutter instead of diverting it over next to your next door neighbor. So let's try and avoid that and try and divert it down where we need to have that done. So try to move the water away. I know this kind of sounds kind of simple, but rain barrels collect a lot of water that's not going into the ground, right? I've collected almost 50 gallons in the last, I would say maybe 3 or 4 weeks as the snow has melted. It was amazing how much water we got. And that's the first time I've used the rain barrels. Things that you want to like anchor. If you've got fuel tanks, we'll definitely want to have you anchor the fuel tanks. If you are in a special flood hazard area, you know you're required to have flood insurance, so you're probably pretty aware if you're in those high risk zones. Maybe moving some of your outdoor furniture, right? and barbecue sets and things like that. Maybe put them inside, put them in a shed in the garage, somewhere where they're not going to end up being a floating body if we end up having some floodwaters. So try and put those in a more secure area. I have a basement. Lots of people in Utah have a basement. I have photos that are probably irreplaceable that are in my basement. So taking consideration items that you're going to want to protect, special important papers, children's homework that you've had, special pictures, anything of value that you want to protect, move that up into higher levels of your house, right? Move them out of your basement, bring them upstairs. Just for the while, just for the time until, we can get the water out of the mountains and down into the lakes where it needs to be. Move maybe some of your possessions would be a good idea to do. If you have a crawl space, some of our homes don't have basements, but we have crawl spaces. You can install flood vents. Flood vents are going to not prevent the water from, coming in. That's going to happen, but flood vents are going to be able to let the water come in and let it flow right back out. So flood vents are something you can look to install. I know we talked a little bit about backup of sewer and storm drains. Backup valves that you want to get to protect those. You can install sub pumps to try and draw out groundwater. You can install drain plugs in the basements to prevent the sewer backups from coming up, sewer backflow valves for any pipes that can enter the building. And then there's also those temporary flood barriers. Not only are there sandbags, but I was in Florida, worked in Florida for a little while, and they actually had ones that you would fill full of water, which kind of seems a little strange, but they would be, an inflatable type of a thing, and you could put those in front of window wells, because that's probably where water's going to come into. So if you're going to sandbag, maybe sandbag around that window well. If you have to step up into your home, like say a couple of steps up into the house, then your first floor is probably elevated a little bit. It's those basement areas that is probably going to fill in with the water. So if you can put the sandbags around some of your window wells to try and keep the water from going down and into the basement, that's going to be a nice practice to do if you can do that with sandbag. A couple of things that BeReady had mentioned, preparing the to-go kits, knowing evacuation routes if you're going to have to evacuate. In the nose, we've already heard of homes that have had to be evacuated. So have an evacuation plan is always a good thing to have in place. And then we're going to talk about flood insurance. This is one of the best ways to mitigate your home if there's going to be a flood loss, is to be able to submit that claim to a flood insurance carrier and have your property restored back to you. So that's a good way to do. High water table. So a lot of communities, my family, grandparents were in Rose Park. They have a high water level table in Rose Park. They sit pretty low along our lake bed, right? And so my grandparents had a sub pump that was installed in their basement. When I was a kid, I was fascinated by that. What is that for? I never knew what that was for, but that's the sub pump that's pumping out that groundwater. Once it hits a certain level and is triggered, then it will start pumping out that groundwater. So sub pumps are a good thing to talk about. Governor Cox has helped us in purchasing not just the sandbags, but they've also been getting sub pumps. So restoration companies might have sub pumps that you can rent. Home Depot might have sub pumps you could rent. Dill Rental might have sub pumps that you can rent if you're concerned about your basement or you're getting water in your basement, to look at the sub pumps to work with that. Let's see. Oh, there's a question on here about insurance, and I'm going to answer that in just a second here. So during a flood, this is really important for during a flood. I'm not going to go through and read all of these, but we really do talk to you about trying to keep people out of the basement, right? Some of these floods that we've just had recently were in the evening, right? Hard to predict again, but if you have children that are sleeping in the basement, maybe for a little while, can you maybe have them sleep upstairs? Get them out of the basement for a while until we get past this. not walking in floodwaters. Not only is it dangerous because you can get swept away, but there's also chemicals that are mixed in the floodwater, so that can be hazardous, and there's hazardous debris, and you can't see where you're walking in the floodwaters. You could be falling into a sinkhole. So let's not walk in floodwaters. And there's a great little graphic that we have on the Be Ready site that's the turn around, don't drown, right? And don't drive through floodwaters. Just common sense, and protect yourself when it comes to floodwaters. You can also sign up for national weather alerts. They will do flood warnings, or you can sign up with your local emergency manager. Some of them will have something like a reverse 911. They might have, I think it's called Red Alert. There's a couple of different alert systems that you can sign up with. They can give you some free information on that. So after the flood. All right, so we've got some flood that might have happened. This is kind of more on an insurance side of things. First of all, make sure the building is structural is sound before you enter that. A lot of forces in water can undermine foundations. So let's make sure that it's safe before you go into there. Taking photos of any damage that you have. Don't just go out and rip out drywall and rip out all of the carpet and then dispose of it. Then when an insurance adjuster comes in or takes a look at it, you don't have that. Make sure you're documenting. It doesn't mean you have to keep it in there, but if you're going to remove things that were damaged in floodwaters, take photos of it and document that. I should have mentioned beforehand to prepare at the beginning, maybe taking an inventory of special items so that if you do have a claim, they're easily to get that information. So I forgot about mentioning that. We do talk about listening to the authorities when it comes to boiling water orders. Make sure you're not using water until you're notified that that's safe. All of this information you will find on BeReady.Utah.gov under floods. There's whole chapters on, before, during, and after. This is just touching base on a couple of things that I've been aware of and kind of talks about. So again, we kind of go back to, it's never flooded in my neighborhood. I've lived in this house for 50 years. I've never had any flooding. If you've heard some people on the news say, I haven't seen this amount of water in 20 years and I've lived here. So again, really unprecedented, likely where it's never ever rained, or excuse me, not rained, but flooded, you probably might have some floodwaters on there. So a statistic, basically 40% of flood insurance claims have been outside the special flood hazard areas. So those are areas that are not considered high risk. So that's 40% of flood claims in Utah that we're aware of through the National Flood Insurance Program have been outside those areas of high risk. So remember, I talked about the blue areas. These are claims that are outside that blue area that people are, again, it's just something that might happen, backup of culverts, water flows where it's going to want to flow. Really important for the National Flood Insurance Program, which is the NFIP, which is what I primarily talk about. There is a 30-day waiting period. So if you're looking to do flood insurance and you haven't yet, there's you're kind of on a clock here. So you really kind of want to take a look at purchasing that, because it doesn't go into effect until 30 days after you purchase the policy. So keep that in mind. That might not be the case for private insurance, though. Want to double check on that when you go with the private insurance. Let's see. So I'm going to talk a little bit about insurance now. And again, I'm going to focus on the NFIP. The NFIP, these are some of the coverage limits on here. I'll talk to you about a difference between a homeowner's policy and a flood insurance policy in just a second. But there are limits that are set by Congress on how much insurance coverage we could do with the National Flood Insurance Program. So for residential buildings, you'll see on here, we only cover up to $250,000 for your building. And then there's a separate $100,000 for your contents. If you're thinking, well, $250,000 isn't going to cover my entire home, well, you can go into the secondary market and get additional insurance for that. However, if you're thinking, well, it's probably only going to hit hit my basement. So $250,000 is probably going to be enough for me to take care of my basement. Then you wouldn't have to do any additional insurance on that. There's also things we'll say that there are content coverage that a renter can get. So if you're renting and you don't own your home, you can still get flood insurance. Flood insurance is available for renters, and it's also available for businesses. So for those that are business owners, you can also look at purchasing flood insurance. These are going to be the differences, but I want to answer the question that I heard flood insurance will only cover if your neighbor also floods. Is this true? This is a great question. Flooding has some exclusions to it. So if flooding is coming from groundwater, right? And we had some of that happening up in Draper about a month ago. That is not considered flooding for a flood insurance policy. Yes, it was flooding with water, but it was coming from underground source. Flooding for the flood insurance policy is overland flooding that's coming out of a channel, or like we saw with that ponding. It has to impact 2 properties or 2 acres. Now, a property could be your home and the street in front of you. That's considered 2 properties. So to answer the question, if I'm flooded, I can't get coverage unless my neighbor is too. So the 2 properties, that's a misnomer. And second property could be the field out in the backyard. If you're out, your home and then the property is the field, that's considered 2 properties. Or like I say, the street got flooded and your home got flooded, that's considered 2 properties. So I hope that answers your question on the properties of how many it would needed to have the flood insurance. So I'm trying to rush on our time here. A couple of key differences. I only have a couple more slides here. So a couple of key differences between the homeowners and the NFIP coverage. Ones that I really want to stress on is a lot of people have said you don't cover for basements. This is correct. There are limitations to basement coverages with the NFIP. What we don't cover in the NFIP is personal property. So we wouldn't cover your television. We wouldn't cover the furniture downstairs in a basement. We wouldn't cover the carpeting. What we are going to cover is things that are going to be structural. So if you have drywall, if you have the studs, if we have electrical, the stairs that are going down into the basement, those are things that are going to be covered. If you had enough water and you had enough pressure that damaged the structure, the subfloor, the concrete floor, that's what we're going to be paying for in a basement. We cover the contents, carpeting and drywall and moldings on the next floor. That's going to be on your first floor. That's if you have flooding that all goes up to the first floor, that's where that's going to be covered. And contents will also be the first floor. We would cover for the couch. We would cover for the TV, but that's if it's not in the basement, if it's on the first floor. The other thing is that with a homeowner's policy, most homeowners insurance does not cover this type of flooding. This is excluded, just like earthquake is excluded. So you want to get earthquake insurance if you have that earthquake risk. You get flood insurance if you're having that flood risk. There are 2 deductibles on flood insurance policies as opposed to just the one that you have on your homeowner's policy. So you have a deductible for your dwelling coverage and you have a deductible for your personal property coverage. You'll want to take a look at what the exclusions are on any policy. You would want to know that whether it's on your home, your auto, same thing on the flood insurance. There are specific exclusions that come into play when we look at this. So let me just clip over here to a couple of exclusions. Just a statistics of that 1 inch of water, it can cause up to $25,000 of damage to your home. These are some of the exclusions specific to the National Flood Insurance policies. We don't cover property outside the dwelling, so things like the decks, the patios, retaining walls, and landscaping. We do not cover for additional living expenses. That's if you can't live in your home due to a flood. That's not covered on a standard home flood insurance policy. And we don't cover for any financial losses if it's a business. That's not something that is covered. So let me see here. I think I've gone over the insurance side of it. This is my contact information. Feel free to write that down if you've got a couple of other questions. I've been trying to watch the question and answer side on our screen, but I haven't seen anything on the chat. Brian, do you see anything, or Ray, anything on the chat they might have?
Yeah, we've got one question.
Okay.
It's about the early warning system for flooding that you were mentioning. Is there a link that we can see, or a link that you could send out, put in the chat or in the Q&A?
I can look
about
and
that?
see that the National Weather Service is the one that sends out the early warning system. So you can actually put it on your phone. You can't see my phone because my thing, but you can actually put on the phone a mobile app for the National Weather Service. It'll send you links for things like high wind warnings, but it'll also do the flood ones. You can get it on there on an app. And then I'll have to look online if we've got an online one that we can look at for the National Weather Service to send out alerts. But that's the one I use is on my phone. It's just an app, National Weather Service, and then they will send us information based on my zip code. And then when I move around with this on the phone, if I'm in a different zip code, they will give me information for whatever zip code I am from the cell tower. So that one's
Okay.
awesome to do.
So people can go to their provider's app store and look up National Weather Service or NWS and download their app, and it should have the alerts on that. And as you said, that would be, it would follow you and should alert you to wherever you are. All
Yep.
right.
Had one follow me and got a tornado alert for one of those. So I hope I was able to get some information. We did put some Sandbag guidance in the chat. I know that came up with Sandbag guidance. Trying to see if there was anything else. Oh, let's see, Barbara, what do you have? Oh, okay. So yes, some of these maps. So Barbara's question is, I've been informed that the FEMA flood risk data is likely inaccurate for your address and where my company is located. So it is possible. The information and some of our maps might be outdated depending on where you were at. Like I mentioned, Salt Lake County has a really nice site that can give you a little bit more information on risk. We are in the process of mapping a number of areas, so there are additional updated maps that are coming available if you go to floodhazards.Utah.gov. There is a mapping platform that's there that might have a little bit more information for you. There's also up on top, it'll say active projects. So there's some new mapping that's going on in Provo that they'll have some information on for the Provo River. We've got some new maps that are coming out up in Cache County. Cache County's maps are going to be becoming effective in May. And so they have some new information. Washington County has got some new preliminary map information that's coming out. So if you have specific questions on a specific area, maybe grab my email and you can send it over to me, and I can get over to Jamie Huff, who is our risk map coordinator, and she might be able to put you in a direction with some more accurate information.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. And we're a little bit over time. We would like to thank everybody for joining us. I'd like to thank the Be Ready Utah team for being here. Thank John Croft and Tracy Harrison for being our guest experts on earthquake and flooding. Thank you very much. We'd like to thank you, the viewers, for joining us and having some questions with us. We hope it was helpful. Hopefully it gave you some ideas for some things that you can do to improve your emergency preparedness plans for you, your family, maybe your business, and some ideas of what you can do to help in your community. We want to remind you that preparing yourself and your family to safely face a possible emergency situation, it can sometimes seem daunting. There's a lot of things that we talked about tonight. We will be sending out a recording of this to everybody that's registered. You'll get a recording of it in an email. Plus, we'll make a link that you can send out to your friends and family to be on YouTube, and we'll send it out on our other social media as well. But emergency preparedness can seem daunting. It seems like there's so much that we've got to do. How do you do all of it? Well, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So another thing we want you to think about just real quick in closing, what we're teaching you is the ideals of emergency preparedness. This is the best way that you can prepare. But to tell the truth, most of us can't do that exact perfect ideal way of preparing. So we do the best we can. And that's the important thing to remember. Do the best you can with the resources you have. We don't have the time, we don't have the budget, we don't have the skills, we don't have the room in our house to be able to do everything that we want to do to be prepared. Do the best you can. Something is always better than nothing, but make it a priority. To keep working at it and keep trying to do a little bit better, get a little bit closer to that ideal emergency preparedness. A quick reminder that you can get all of this information and more on how you can prepare for an emergency at BeReady.Utah.gov. You can request Be Ready Utah to come out to your community event, your school, your business, or your church, and we can do a preparedness topic for you. And we also want to remind you about the shakeout that's next Thursday at 10:15 a.m. And there's more information on that on our website. As I said, this webinar will be available. We thank you all very much for being here. We had a lot of participation. We had a lot of great questions. Thank you very much. We'll let you know when we do another one of these. Until then, have a good night from Be Ready Utah. And remember, anytime is a good time to talk about emergency preparedness.